Hello, my dear friends, and welcome. My name is Vicki Hadge, and this is Even So It Is Well. On my channel, I share my thoughts about living well with chronic illness. This does not mean that my thoughts are necessarily going to agree with your thoughts, and it also does not mean that my thoughts are medical advice. It just means that I'm thoughtful. I'm starting with a huge disclaimer today. My thoughts are definitely not medical advice. Today, I'm going to be talking about my early MS symptoms and MS symptoms in general. So if you have any of these symptoms, it does not mean that you have MS. It just means you have a symptom. You might want to write them down and talk with your doctor about them if you have them. So let's get started. My earliest discernible MS symptoms were weakness and foot drop. And those are some pretty big symptoms, but I am the queen of denial. Not denial, denial. I couldn't believe there was something wrong with me. There can't be anything wrong with me. I'm too healthy. I must have slept wrong, or it's a pinched nerve, or I overdid it. So I just completely ignored it for a whole weekend. But by the time Monday came around, I could not ignore it anymore, and I went to the doctor. And they did not diagnose me with MS at that time, but I will put a card up here that you can click on if you want to see my full MS story. They were able to clear that up with steroids. I didn't have any lingering effects, so I decided to get really healthy. That scared me a lot. So I started eating more vegetarian, more whole foods, exercising more, doing more stress reduction, yoga, and meditation. And I went happily along for about 11 years, and then I started to get some more symptoms. And you guessed it, I denied it again. Like, there's nothing wrong, I'm too healthy, there can't be anything wrong with me. But these symptoms were a little bit more subtle, and a lot of MS symptoms can be subtle. It was loss of sensation and some more weakness, and there was some fatigue. But a lot of these symptoms came and went, and sometimes that's what MS symptoms do. They flare and they recede, and none of them were really debilitating, so I just kind of lived with them. But then they got worse, and I had some tightness, some spasticity. My leg felt tight in my calf and my thigh, and my foot had some loss of sensation, and yeah. I can't believe I ignored these symptoms. But I did, and I noticed on my hand had some numbness as well, and I have a numb spot on my cheek as well. And all of these are on the opposite side from my initial symptoms. At that point was about 11 years previous. And so it was on the other side, and it was different. It was more subtle. So of course I ignored it. Some of the signs that I shouldn't have ignored. There should have been alarm bells going off because they suspected MS originally, but no. I was driving one day, and I have buttons on my steering wheel so I can adjust the volume and the radio station on my radio, and I wanted to turn the volume up, and I could feel the button, but I couldn't distinguish if I had my thumb on the right button. I couldn't distinguish the details. There was something there, but I wasn't sure I was in the right spot, so I had to look down, and then I could adjust it. And I thought, that's weird, but then I just let it go. And then I started to get this tingly sensation in my foot when I exercised. And if I really exercised hard, if I did a high aerobic class at the gym, I noticed that I was getting pain in the bottom of my foot, almost like blisters. I would come home and I would take my sneaker off and look for blisters, and there were never any blisters there. So I finally smartened up and went to the doctor, and the doctor kind of teased out some more information from me. Some of these symptoms were temperature related, so I have temperature intolerance. That's another sign of MS. When I get hot, my symptoms get worse. I get that burning sensation on the bottom of my foot. The spasticity, the tightness in my leg gets worse. I get a lot more fatigue if I get overheated for prolonged periods. But I also noticed that when I step on something cold, like cold tile, and I'm not wearing any socks, or if I step into the cold ocean, I get this spasm. My foot jumps up out of the water or off the tile. And once my body acclimates to the cold, it settles down. So yeah, lots of doctor's appointments, lots of questioning. I saw multiple doctors, and then I was finally diagnosed. And looking back, there were symptoms way back, years and years ago, that I went, I wonder if that was MS. I have scoliosis. I have curvature of the spine. And I wore a back brace for 9 years. So some of the odd things that happened to me, I would put up to, it must be related to my scoliosis. When I sit for too long, especially in chairs where my feet don't reach the ground, I'm only 4'10". Yeah, I'm little. I'm only 4'10", and my feet don't reach the ground in most chairs. And if I have to sit for a long period of time, I will sometimes get spasms in my left leg. It'll jerk, or it will jump sometimes. And I always wrote that off to, it must be related to my scoliosis. And maybe not. Maybe it was related to my MS. Some of the other symptoms of MS can be optic neuritis. The optic nerve can be affected by the lesions, and it can get some scarring, or it can get some inflammation. And this often shows up as a blind spot or blurriness or double vision. Optic neuritis is very treatable, and it's very rare that the blindness is permanent. And we can have balance issues because it affects our nervous system. Sometimes the signals don't get through, so it can affect our balance. And we can have dizziness and vertigo. We can also have bladder and bowel control problems. Again, very treatable. And we can have Cog Fog. Cog Fog is when you can't think of the right word, or you have problems concentrating, or your mind kind of wanders off. Cog Fog can be very serious, and it can lead to a lot of people leaving work. Cog Fog and fatigue are two big issues. A lot of people think it's loss of mobility that leads people to leave work, and more often than not, it is Cog Fog and fatigue. And there's also something called L'Hermite's sign. And yes, you have to say it with a French accent. L'Hermite. Jean L'Hermite was a neurologist, a French neurologist, who discovered this. When you put your chin down to your chest and flex the spine, you can sometimes get an electrical or a buzzing sensation down your spine or into your extremities. And there's another one called McArdle's sign, and that is from a professor of neurology in London, and I can't do a London accent, sorry. But again, when you flex your head down, put your chin down and flex your spine, there can be a marked increase of weakness. And that is because when we pull our chin down and we flex our spine, if there's any scars or lesions on our spine, it can affect how our body responds when we flex like that. Another problem that's really big that a lot of people don't talk about is depression. Up to 50% of people with multiple sclerosis suffer from depression. And this can be very serious, but it also is very treatable. Living with MS can be a challenge, but we can also live really well with our MS. Through a combination of diet and lifestyle changes and medication, we can live well. Work with your doctors, work with your physical therapist, work out at the gym, and work on your diet, and you can live well with MS. If you have any questions about MS symptoms, or if you'd like to see me do another video on symptoms and maybe go into a little bit more depth on any of the symptoms, please leave me a comment below. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, the like icon, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Also, in the description below, you will find a link to be on my mailing list if you would like to do that. And I send an email out every time I release a video. Until next time, be well.